All right, welcome everybody. Um, I'm just gonna make sure that everyone can hear me okay. I've had a few people send me some messages in the chat letting me know that they can hear me and everything's good. Hopefully you can see me, hopefully you can see my screen. So feel free to just drop a message in the chat so that I know everything's working great. I love working with technologies. Some days I have good days, some days I have bad days. So just want to do a quick check-in. Thanks, Anne. Well, first I just wanted to start off. We can see your screen. Excellent. Okay, so no one's saying they can't see it, so that's usually a good sign. So let me just welcome you to today's webinar. This is our second webinar in a LEGO series that Spectrum Education is hosting. My name is Kristen Mogg, and I've worked for Spectrum Education for about 15 years now. I've held pretty much the same position for the last 10 years, and I look after science and technology sales here in Ontario. And I also support my colleagues right across the country. I am one of very few LEGO Education Academy trainers. That's a bit of a mouthful. And so today I'm just going to be doing kind of a super casual walkthrough of the Spike Prime software app. I'm going to be using my desktop just because it's a little bit easier, but I just wanted to let you know if you are following along on a tablet or an iPad or something, or even a Chromebook, which you're more than welcome to do if you want to, follow along a little bit on your own device. The software is kind of a mirror image between the two, so they're going to be the exact same. If you do notice me kind of glancing over here to my right, it's because I have multiple screens set up in front of me. So that way I can keep tabs on the chat. If anyone wants to come off webcam, I have the ability to see all your beautiful faces, and yeah, just kind of checking in from kind of a technical side of things. So a little bit more about me. Like I said, I've been in the same role for 10 years with Spectrum. What I love most about my job is connecting with teachers and students. And unfortunately, given the global pandemic, I haven't really been able to do that, which is why we felt that it was a great way to connect with people using digital and being able to meet in these virtual environments. So I hope that you'll join me. Most of my webinars moving forward will be every other Wednesday, give or take, given my schedule, but that's kind of what I'm aiming for, is to hop on here every other Wednesday and just walk you through either hardware. So we'll either be looking at a specific LEGO product, or we'll be looking at kind of the technical side. I'll give you a walkthrough of either the resources or the app. And then hopefully down the line, I'm hoping to host some actual trainings online as well. A requirement for this training would be that you would have the product already, or you would have to purchase the product prior to the training. And if you have any feedback, I am open to it, definitely. And if you have any suggestions of LEGO products that you would like to see sooner rather than later, again, just drop all that information in the chat. You can either say it to everyone or you can just send it to me directly. I'm also going to just right now put my email address in the chat. And that way, if anyone wants to reach out to me privately, they can definitely do so. Oops, I'm typing my own email wrong. And for those of you that were with us last time, my last webinar 2 weeks ago, you were in my home office in my basement, so I don't have the best lighting, and we have a little bit of an upgrade here today. So I hope you enjoy that. And without further ado, I'm just gonna jump right in. So on my screen that you guys can see, I already have the Spike Prime app opened up, and you'll see here you have a start button. So this is just where this start button actually takes you to the same place as this start button here. And it's just gonna, if you're brand new to the product, it's gonna walk you through opening up your kit from the box, getting it sorted, where to start, where to download the software if you haven't done so already. You'll see here, because I have used the software before, that I have quite a few programs. So any of my existing programs you can see here. If I wanted to start a new project, it's just the plus sign here. If I go show all, it just opens them all up into a different window. I have the ability here to search based on what I've named my program. Unfortunately, I'm not the best at naming my programs. You'll notice that I have multiples named the same. So that's actually an area that I wish to improve on, is to start naming my programs a little bit more appropriately. You do have the ability to select different programs and delete them or enter into them. I'm just going to go back. You do have the ability to delete, duplicate, or move, or at this point, we could even rename them. We can look at them in this format where it's kind of just the squares, or you can have it actually list your programs. They typically list when the last time it was modified, but you do have the ability of sorting that also. Icon. So if we scroll down, we'll be able to see unit plans and building instructions. Within the software, there's a few different ways to get to kind of the same point. So I have the ability of clicking here and entering the unit plans, but I also have the ability of clicking up here in my top menu bar to get to unit plans as well. And you'll notice the same with building instructions. So I have the ability of clicking in here and accessing building instructions, or I can use that top menu and access my building instructions as well. So let's take a look at the getting started features. So if I click in here, it's my start, getting started, and we go into the first module, which is start here. So the start here is going to introduce you to your hub. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, or I can make it smaller, or I can get rid of it altogether, but we don't want to do that. And it's going to prompt you, because you're brand new to using this app. It's assuming if you're using the getting started feature, this is going to prompt you to click here to navigate through. It's going to show you how to insert your battery into your hub. And then it's actually going to, right off the bat, walk you through your very, very first program. So literally you can get programming within 60 seconds of opening up the app, provided you have the hardware. And you notice this hand here is showing me what it wants me to do. So this programming is very similar to Scratch programming. It's actually based on Scratch programming. So if you've used Scratch before, you might recognize some of these blocks. So when the program starts and it's a play button, and then it wants me to drag, it looks like a light icon. It's a light purple. Turn on a smiley face. I have the ability of changing that if I want to. So the Spike Prime Hub is a 5x5 LED matrix, which this is essentially telling us what LEDs are turned on here in white and which ones are off here in kind of this dark blue, dark purple. But I also have the ability to kind of choose a gradient as well in between on and off. So we'll just keep it the way that it is for now. It's prompting me again to move a sound block over and connect it. So this one is play beep number 60 for 0.2 seconds. So mine isn't prompting me right now to connect through Bluetooth. I have a little bit of an older desktop, so I don't always use my Bluetooth. I find the hard plug in to be a little bit easier to use. So it's just a USB that I've plugged into the port on my computer. I have a model built here already for for this walkthrough that I'm going to be showing you. I'm going to try and show my camera here. Should turn it this way, actually. So we're going to play this program now, and you should be able to see on my camera. It shows the smiley face, and it made the beep sound really quickly for less than a second. So that's just an idea of showing you how literally you can get up and running with the programming in less than a minute without having any previous experience. And then it's going to take you through to the next lesson. So this next lesson, when I'm using this kind of this tutorial window here, it automatically takes me to the next lesson. And you'll notice that similar to an internet browser at the very top here, these Breakdance and Super Cleanup, these were programs that I was working on prior to this session, but the start here is the one that we actually just completed. And when I hit go to the next lesson, it actually opened a new browser for me called Motors and Sensors. So we could access this lesson this way by following the tutorial and having it prompt us, or if I go back to my handy home button, it's going to take me home, and I go back to the start, you'll notice that lesson 2, number 2, is Motors and Sensors. So I could have stayed where we were, or I could access Motors and Sensors here. So the Motors and Sensors tutorial is just going to take us through step by step on how you're going to use Spike Prime Hub and the Spike Prime app to operate your motors and use those sensors. So we're going to continue. I'm actually not going to go through and build this one. I'm just going to show you it. But here are your building instructions. Again, these little yellow prompts are wonderful. So, you plug in your battery, which it did show us how to do. And then it just goes through a series of instructions of these are very, very simple, quick builds. And then done. To be able to build these kind of 6 different add-ons. So it's going to give you an introduction to the 2 medium motors and the 1 large motor, as well as 3 of the sensors. And then it's going to give you some programs that it wants you to try. It's going to tell you exactly where to plug your, in this case, it's a motor, where you're going to plug your motor in. Connect a large motor to port C on your hub and play this program. So then you can see the desired outcome. And this tutorial just continues on in a very similar. I'm going to take you back to the home button so I can show you a little bit more of the start menu. And then from the motors and sensors, you would graduate to a very small, very simple build, and it's build a hopper, and all you're going to do is make the hopper move. And again, it's set up in a very, very similar fashion. You got your little tutorial window off to the side. Let's have some fun. What do you get when you put a hub, 2 motors, and a pile of bricks together? Gives you your building instructions, which you can open into and follow. And then it's going to give you a program. So it tells you what to do. So try it out, play this program, watch your hopper move. Watch out, there's lots of fun ahead. And then you can test your prototype. And it provides you with different hints. So to make your hopper cover the distance, you might have to adjust the programming blocks for value. So what it does is it kind of provides you with a basic program, and then it asks you to alter that program or add to that program to achieve your desired outcome. And you'll notice here that in this case, we have a limited number of blocks available to us. And the blocks that are available to us here under the Make It Move are different than the blocks that were made available to us for when we were doing motors and sensors. And even when we were in the start here area, they were all different. And what this is doing is it's limiting the number of icons that you have available to you for the programming blocks, so that it'll really keep your students on task. You're learning what specific icons mean, what they do, what the different modes are of each of these different icons. and how altering them or change them is going to change the desired outcome of your, or ultimately the outcome of your physical robot or build. You do have the ability of opening things up if you wanted to, though. So you'll see here at the very bottom, you can show block extensions, and it's going to show me a lot more options here. We're going to go more into that a little bit later. So I am going to return to my home and back to the start because I have more that I want to show you. So below these getting started steps 1, 2, and 3, there's extra resources, and there's also teacher preparation. So it actually walks you through, there's some lessons that you can access. There's also teacher resources. So if we go more information online, you determine whether you're the student or the teacher. In this case, I'm going to show you what the teacher is going to see. So I just have to change my screen sharing so that you guys can see what I'm seeing. There. So hopefully now what you're seeing is actually education.lego.com's website. If you can go to this website independently on your own, you don't have to have the app installed to access these. If you go to education.lego.com and you use the resources tab, you can access resources based on product and get to the exact same spot that I'm in here. So these are just some additional teachers' resources for the different lessons. It's showing you how to access them. And we're just going to jump into one of them so I can show you an example. So you can print it, you can also share it. These are free online resources. It gives you an approximate time frame that you should spend on this kind of lesson. It gives you a level, so whether it's beginner, intermediate, or advanced, and it gives a recommended grade as well. So it always shows you a picture of what you're trying to accomplish, like what your build's going to look like. There's some teacher support, so it gives you key objectives, things that you're going to need. Occasionally with the Lego sets, you will need some kind of standard classroom objects, or, depending on what the lesson is or the activity is, you might need, a crumpled up piece of paper or an empty water bottle, things that are fairly readily available. So it would list those things for you here so you could get them ready for your lesson ahead of time. Additional resources is just another link to building instructions. Educational standards, I will caution you here, these are next generation science standards or Common Core, so they're based on American standards. However, when you look at these standards, it is fairly easy to make connections to either the Ontario curriculum or just your provincial curriculum right across Canada. It just might fall into a different area or a different strand within the curriculum, depending on, obviously depending on the lesson. It provides you with student material as well, so there is the ability to give the students access to this. And if we were to click the student link instead of the teacher link, this is where it would take us. This is just a digital version that is student friendly of the lesson. So it provides them with a video and kind of like what the objectives are. Then back to the teacher view. So that was the student material view online. And then it goes through, oops, scrolling the wrong way. Lesson plan, it gives you some tips on how to prepare, how to engage the students before the lesson. So usually it involves igniting a discussion. Explore, this is when the students are actually going to be completing the build and attempting the task. Then explain. So this is more of an extension activity. Explain is a little bit different depending on the lesson, just as elaborate is. So elaborate is where they kind of take the lesson and they take the next step. So it usually is a little bit more open-ended. There's always an evaluation piece. So how LEGO works it is there's self-evaluation, there's peer evaluation, and then there's instructor evaluation as well. So there are rubrics available that you can look at to be able to give feedback on the student's performance. They use different colored bricks for both self-assessment as well as peer assessment. And then it gives you some more information about each of these areas. So more information about how you can ignite a discussion, or the next step is, more building tips of what you can maybe recommend. If you have a specific student in your class that is maybe struggling with the build, you can make different suggestions, or vice versa. You can make the build a little bit more challenging when they're open-ended like this. Next, it's going to give you some programming tips specific to that lesson. And obviously each lesson, it's going to be a little bit different, and it does explain why you would incorporate these blocks. And coding tips are just that. They're just tips. Obviously, students all look at the world, as well as we as individuals look at the world differently from different perspectives. Our experiences allow us to bring, our different perspectives to programming or building, or some of us have different strengths and weaknesses than others. So your building tips and your coding tips are just that. They're only tips. Every student's outcome could potentially be very, very different. And as long as they're completing the desired outcome, or, working hard towards a goal, LEGO doesn't see any issue in that. And, we want to create equal opportunities for everyone. The differentiation, so this is how you can simplify a lesson or even take it to the next level, depending on your students' understanding level or abilities. And then a little bit more in detail about how LEGO recommends, your teacher observation checklist for assessment, self-assessment, as I mentioned, as well as peer assessment. It gives you some different extension activities, just some recommendations. In this case, this one is a language arts extension, but there's also, for some of them, there's math extensions. And when you incorporate these extension lessons, you know how originally at the very beginning of the lesson plan, it said 30 to 45 minutes. If you do those, either the language arts or the math extension activities, that is going to make for a longer lesson. So that's just one way of looking at some of the different teacher resources. I can go back and take a look at some of the other lessons or different units. So I'm going to go back to the software now. And we're going to look at the teacher preparation. So this is for someone who's brand new to the set, opened it for the first time. And if I was recommending one place where you should look at first before anything else, if you're brand new to Spike Prime, this is where I would recommend starting. So all the kits come with these stickers that you can apply to the sorting trays, as well as your storage container that allows you to sort your pieces. It makes it a little bit easier. It's great for classroom management as well. I have made the mistake in the past of being too excited for my LEGO kit and have opened it up and just gotten started with it, and really regretted not having put kind of these organizational tips into place and put the stickers in my sorting trays, and end up having to go back and do it later. Also, a lot of the bags come pre-sorted now for these, so they make it really easy to, here, sorting the bricks. So bag 1 goes in slot 1, bag 2 goes into slot 2. So previously, when like I said, I've worked with LEGO Education and Spectrum for 10 years now, and this was never a thing. And this was definitely something that consumer and customer feedback really played a role. So now, rather than just having the bags come in the kit and you having to sort them when you open your kit for the very first time, they have pre-organized and kind of pre-sorted them for you, which as a teacher or an instructor is extremely handy. And then maintenance of kits going forward, I would put the responsibility of that either on your students or even older students potentially that are looking, just for to help out extra in the classroom. It doesn't necessarily have to be your students, but maybe on a rainy recess, or I don't know, if a kid is staying late after school, maybe it's a detention thing, have them sort your Lego kits. Typically, I sort all my own kits, and it's one of those things that the more you do it, the faster you get at it, because you kind of have it's kind of sad to say, I have it almost memorized where all the pieces go. It's going to also show you here how to insert your battery properly. The battery can actually only be charged when it is plugged into the hub. So you're going to want to plug in your battery right away and get it charging before your first lesson. The batteries do come with a little bit of a pre-existing charge. So you can press the big button. It's gonna, shows you this lovely image here. You got your Bluetooth, you got your 5x5 LED matrix. It's a little bit hard to see, but you got your labeled ports on the side. So there's 3 here and there's 3 here. And what's great about Spike Prime is it doesn't matter whether you plug a motor or a sensor into any of the ports. You can plug a motor into port A, or you can plug any of the sensors into port A. They're not port specific. And then you also have a left and a right arrow, as well as this big power button here. Identifying your hardware. So it also comes with other stickers, more than just the ones for the sorting trays. These gives you these blank stickers that allow you to write on them with permanent marker. They're just really small, and so that you can identify your kit using a number or a letter or maybe some type of abbreviation. And then you can also put this corresponding sticker on the actual storage container that the set comes in itself, and it's just really great for piece maintenance. When your hub comes or your set comes from the first time and you connect it to a computer, it will require an update. So these updates can only be done on Mac or Windows devices, so desktops or laptops. After that, you can definitely do them. You can do any of your updates using tablets after that. However, just for that first initial setup, you will need to plug it in to an actual computer. And that's it. We've kind of navigated through all the teacher preparation. I've shown you the extra resources, and I've taken you through the getting started. So I wanted to just take a quick minute and ask if anyone has any questions about that before I move on to units and builds. You can either unmute yourself or just drop me a message in the chat. Okay, I'll stop if I end up seeing something pop up. So I've shown you home. I've shown you the start menu. Now we're going to take a look at units. So the Lego Spike Prime set has 5 different units. When you download the app for the very first time, well, for me anyway, when I believe this is the case for everybody, these are kind of grayed out and they have a download arrow. So you need to have internet access to download them for the first time. Once they have been downloaded, you do not require internet access to use the units. You can't access any of the additional resources that take you to that education.lego.com resource section. But once it's downloaded, it's there to stay, unless there's any updates. And you'll notice when you open up your app, if you do require any updates, it'll prompt you. You'll have a little pop-up and it'll tell you whether your hub needs to be updated or whether there's software updates available. And they're fairly quick and easy to do, but they do require internet access. So the units are as follows. So there's Invention Squad, there's Kickstart a Business, Life Hacks, Competition Ready, and this one's a newer one called Training Trackers. And you'll notice that they each kind of have, they're all STEAM, but each one of them focuses more on a specific subject. So for example, the Invention Squad really focuses on engineering and the actual builds. The Kickstart a Business really focuses on the computer science aspect and the coding. And one of the lessons that I love in here is where it actually provides you with incorrect code. It's not a trick. Lego's not trying to, pull one over on you. They actually let you know that there is an error in the code, and part of the lesson is identifying what the error is and correcting it so that you can get that desired outcome for your model. Then there's Life Hacks. So Life Hacks also has a focus on computer science and coding. Competition Ready is the engineering as well as the computer science. It's a little bit of both. So this unit is very specific to First LEGO League. If you don't know about First LEGO League, we do have a webinar coming up in early May. So if you're on our email list, you will definitely be receiving information about our upcoming webinars for April and May. So if you don't know anything about First LEGO League, I won't spend too much time today talking about it. I will just encourage you to join us for that session with Christine Bibick, who's actually on our webinar with us today. Hi, Christine. And and join us to learn more about that. Essentially, it's a competitive Lego platform that is global and really encourages students working as a team. I'm probably not doing the best job of explaining it despite being involved with it for 10 years. It kind of looks at robotics and computer science and coding as a sport rather than kids who play hockey or are on a soccer team or the volleyball team at school. This really is like a team or a club environment that really caters to students that maybe naturally have an interest for engineering and technology, or maybe they don't necessarily have, a tendency towards engineering and technology. What's great about the program is it's very, very inclusive. It's appealing to both genders or all genders. And join us in May. I'll leave it at that. Join us in May for our session, and there's more information coming about that. Training Trackers is still STEAM as well, but it also focuses on science. And based on my experience with this unit, it actually does have a very big math component as well. Math is really kind of scattered here and there throughout all of the different units. I'm not sure if you noticed, but when I was showing you the extra resources, there was specifically a language arts extension for that specific lesson, as well as a math extension. So you'll notice, I'm going to show you some of these, and hopefully you'll notice that there's math scattered throughout all of these different lessons. So I have actually created a model here today. So all of the units are set up in a very, very similar fashion in terms of, layout, additional resources, the tutorial section, as well as, just the drag and drop icons as well. So the model that I built was a part of the Life Hacks unit. So that's the one we're going to specifically take a look at today. So each unit starts off with this kind of animated video that you can take a look at. So programming with different variables and data is what this one's all about. We can look at the different lessons within each unit, and you can also look at the teacher information the teacher resources, more information online. This is the section that you would need internet for. We're going to look at that, but let's take a look at the lessons first. So the lessons within this unit is breakdance, repeat 5 times, and it gives you a little bit of a summary of each of them as well as a little video. So you'll notice that each unit has quite a few different lessons within it, with the final lesson usually being the longest lesson and very much open-ended. So what it's doing is taking what you've learned from completing these, these different lessons above. So breakdance, repeat 5 times, rain or shine, wind speed, veggie love, and brain gain. And it's taking what you've learned from doing those lessons, and then you're applying it to something a little bit more open-ended called the coach. So I started really simple. I thought like a Wednesday midweek dance party was what, our webinar called for today. So I chose break dance. So sitting for a long time, remember to get up and move. Build a break dancer to remind you to take breaks and stay active. Dance along to your favorite music all throughout the day. So it gives us a little video. The video, I'll just let it play. So I know that videos don't always come across on these webinars well, from a quality perspective, from a speed aspect. So it really is just showing you, that the desired outcome of, the break dance build and the model that's created. So we're going to jump in and start this lesson. And it gives us an opportunity to watch that video if we haven't watched it already. So like I mentioned in the beginning, there are kind of multiple avenues to kind of get to the same point. So you can watch the video before you enter the lesson, or you can watch the video after you've watched the lesson. So get up and dance. How much time do you spend sitting down? Think about the time you spend in class, on the computer, watching TV, or playing video games. Do you think it's important to stand and take regular breaks? Why? So these are kind of prompts that are going to get the students thinking, and this is really, really lends itself to that igniting a discussion at the beginning of any lesson. Then we're going to, just like how we learned in the getting started section, we're going to use the arrow to navigate through this tutorial on the side. So then it's going to give us our building instructions. It'll open them up. In this case, what Lego's done with Spike Prime is they've broken the building instructions down into 2 parts whenever possible. And they've done this for a few different reasons. Quicker builds, because students can each be working on a separate part of the build and then come together and kind of connect their 2 pieces for the final model. So time is really a big thing. Sometimes we don't have access to enough devices to be able to do that, but it's still beneficial to kind of break the build down into 2 parts to help them with understanding all the different components of the model itself. So in this bottom build, the breakdancer legs, that's actually powered by 1 motor, whereas the breakdancer's body is actually powered by a separate motor. So they're actually 2 different moving components. So I really liked that, and I thought it was unique, and it does really help with build time if you have access to enough devices for building instructions. So I actually took the time. I have built my breakdancer already. And So I'm going to skip out of that. I'm just going to make sure that, can you guys see me and my screen or just my screen?
We can see you.
Great. Thank you. Just checking, because I can see me and I can see my screen and I can see all of your names on the screen too. So I just want to make sure that everyone can see everything. Great. So I built mine. So now I'm going to go to step 3 of 7. So now we're going to sync those legs. We're going to play this program that's automatically populated for me, and we're going to change the timing to make the dancer's legs move 10 times in sync with the light. So the light is the screen lighting up. For example, I'll have the legs start to move when the number 1 is lit up on the hub. So that we can see better, I'm just going to move this off to the side. So it's given us some notes to break down the different components of the program. So this first program here is, so when the program starts, it's actually a program that is going to place the breakdancer in the correct starting position. Then this second section here is when starting. It's going to turn the motor F on in this direction for 1 rotation. So that would be 1 motor rotation. And it's going to wait 1 second, and then it's going to repeat that, and it's going to do that 10 times. And this is where it's prompting us to adjust the timing so that the timing of the legs moving lines up with this bottom section here. So when go is my play button. It is going to turn on the number 1 on the display for 1 second. Then it's going to turn on number 2 for 1 second and turn on number 3 for 1 second. And it's going to repeat that 10 times. So before I make any adjustments, I'm just going to go ahead and hit play. It'll be a little bit hard to see. I've got a little bit of glare here. So a little bit hard to see, especially when you can't see my screen. I'll play. So what I can tell you about what's going on right now is the screen is going 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And I can tell you that we are out of sync, that the breakdancer is not moving at the same time as the numbers are showing up on the screen. So this is why it's prompting us to kind of adjust the timing. So you can do that a few different ways. You can use decimal places. Some students might not follow the instructions perfectly, which is okay. There are other ways. You can actually change the speed at which the motor is moving, which would affect the timing. So this is where we can get into a conversation about how speed and time are going, when we change one variable, how we're going to get a different outcome. Does anyone have any suggestions of what we should change for how many seconds? We're going to wait. Right now it's waiting for 1 second. Does anybody have any suggestions? What we need to account for is the actual movement. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put in half a second, and I'm going to play again. So that gave me a much better result. It's definitely not perfect. I would personally I'm a perfectionist. I would probably take a little bit more time and play around with those numbers and try and get it as perfect as possible. For the first 1, 2, 3, it seems to be moving with the numbers, but as it continues, it kind of is just very, very slowly falling behind. But ultimately, I would say that we've adjusted it. We did get them to kind of sync up as best as possible. You could, at this point, have different groups share with other groups of what their outcomes were. If you had a student who was maybe struggling, you could actually have them play around with the speed of the motor to see if that helped. You could give them timers and see if they could time how long it took for the breakdancer to actually make that motion. There's lots of different ways that we could kind of extend this. So if we go on to step 4 is now we're going to swing those arms. So now use what you've learned and sync the dancer's arms with the light. It's going to give us a hint. So it reminds us, don't forget to change the ports. So make sure you identify the different ports, what your arm motor is plugged into. In this case, mine is plugged into port D. So I can actually have them simultaneously. So when the program starts, turn on motor D and F, set the speed at 80%. D and F go the shortest path to position 0, wait 1 second, broadcast go. So if I go here, I can definitely use the drop-down menu. I can choose multiple, I can add D. I'm going to do the same here. And now I'm going to play again. Oh, my arms aren't moving. Why do we think that is? Does anybody have any suggestions? Well, I noticed here that my motor is also, so this is where my motor is actually turning on. So it's actually only turning on motor F, which is the motor that is connected to my legs. So I'm going to go and choose multiple again, and I'm going to update that, and I'm going to see if that changes the outcome. There we go. Now my arms are moving up and down, doing the wave. Okay, so I've been able to move my legs, sync to the lights, and now move my arms as well and get dancing. Now is the part where we get to add some music. So step 5 is add some beats. Add at least 2 beats in tune with your dancer's moves. Can you keep everything in sync? It gets a little bit more challenging as we go on. So it gives you try something like this, and you can scroll down and it makes some suggestions about what you can do. So when I receive go, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to hide this. So again, I have a limited number of icons that I'm being provided that are specific to this lesson. So I could go through and take a look there, or if I wanted to, I could open it up. So what we're going to do, lost it. When I receive go, and we want to make sure it repeats, we can play the drum. I'm just going to, just for time's sake, I'm just going to do one sound. So now if I play, you guys might not hear it just because of the audio. So I did get that snare drum. I'd have to spend more time and play around and have it with the beat. It was a little bit fast for how my breakdancer was moving. So again, if we had more time, I would spend more time completing this section of the lesson. Now it's time to move. So now that everything's in sync, it's encouraging you to get up and kind of have that dance party. So I can't see you all, but hopefully you kind of get up, and if you don't do it now, maybe later today, you can get up and get moving and get the blood flowing before you sit down and do any more work for the day. And lastly, this is where the self-assessment would come in. How did you do? Think about what you did well and what you could have done better. Dance, life hack, a perfect match. So for me, what I could have done better is I definitely could have spent more time getting the beat to synchronize. What I think I did well is I think I definitely did well on my build. And I think personally I do well with getting up and moving around throughout the day. So to go along with this break dance, I am going to return to the home and show you the corresponding teacher materials for just 4 more minutes. And then, so if we go back into life hacks and to the teacher resources, more information online. I'm a teacher. Again, we've gone back to that education.lego.com. This can be found under the resources tab. It's taken us right to the life hacks unit. They're just trying to keep it really simple. So here's the breakdancing one that we just did. So this is what I would encourage you to take a look at kind of before you jump into the lesson. So it breaks down just like we looked at with the other lesson plan: prepare, engage, explore, explain, and elaborate. And then finally evaluate. You have an area for your student materials. So if we were to click student, this is where it would take us to their online section. Here's your key objectives, things you would need, additional resources, and educational standards. Again, I repeat that would be Common Core and Next Generation Science standards. However, it's fairly simple to make the connections to your provincial curriculum as well. It gives you some suggestions about how to ignite a discussion above and beyond what is provided in the tutorial. The building tips, so you can do the tandem build like we talked about, talking about things to sync. It gives you some coding tips. We did see a lot of these same tips in that hints section that I was clicking on for assistance. It provides you with a possible solution. Again, there are multiple solutions to every problem. Then it gives you the differentiation. So we could simplify this lesson by exploring the functions of the motor and how to control it using different units. So you could look at how to control the motor using seconds, using degree that the motor rotates, or full rotations. And you could look at sensors in the getting started material to help you. If you wanted to take this lesson to the next level, you could have teams sync their models to create a flash mob, which I just think is so fun. It gives you some checklist items for your observations for teacher assessment, the self-assessment and the peer assessment that we looked at previously. And then it's also giving us a language arts and a math extension here. And then it's actually also going to give us career links. So in the language arts extension, we could incorporate language arts by having the students research and discuss why it's important to get up and move at regular intervals when sitting for long periods in class, at the computer, watching TV, playing video games. This is something that I feel like is super appropriate given the pandemic. I think students with virtual learning or remote learning or even hybrid learning. I know myself personally, I used to be on the road all the time, going to conferences, setting up displays, loading my car, unloading my car, loading my car again, going for long drives, stopping at, those kind of en routes on the highway, getting out, getting some fresh air, taking a bit of a walk around. I used to be a lot more active during my workday than personally I am right now. So I have to make a conscious effort to get up and go and get a glass of water and then go back downstairs. Otherwise, it's so easy to get in the habit of sitting at your desk from 8 o'clock in the morning until 5 or 6 o'clock at night. So they can actually research and look into kind of maybe health concerns or maybe recommended timeframes, things like that. The math extension could potentially be have your students explore or explain beats in terms of fractions. So we can introduce fractions and have them play polymetric beats. So 2/4, 3/8, 5/4, 4/4. Again, those types of extensions will make the lesson longer. And then it actually gives you some kind of career links that you can take a look at as well if students want to explore where they can take things. Lastly, I'm going to go back into the software and I'm just going to show you the last part that I haven't shown you yet, the building instructions. So again, multiple different ways of accessing these building instructions. You'll notice that I had access to the break dancer building instructions right within that lesson within the Life Hacks unit within the tutorial, or you can access it here as well. And all of these are accessible through one part of the app or another. And really that's it. My projects, just a different way of looking at my projects that I showed you at the very beginning. Otherwise, I think I've taken you through a fairly generic walkthrough of the Spike Prime app. And that's it for me. Is there any questions? Does anybody have any questions? Or anything that I didn't touch on that you'd like me to show you? Okay, well, it doesn't appear that Waffles had to head out. That's okay. Well, I have you, I guess, for another 3 minutes. If you'd like to stay on, I can show you a little bit more about LEGO Education's website. They have some amazing resources there. So if I just go to the website home, so just if you were to go to education.lego.com, this is where you would end up. Under the resources tab, you can look at all resources, just getting started, COVID-19 resources, lesson plans, or resources by solution. I like to go to the product resources library. I find it's just the simplest way. It's kind of just out of habit as well. That's kind of the direction I go. Right now we're looking at LEGO Education Spike Prime. So there's videos about how to get started. You know, there's this getting started guide. There's actually going to be more resources here. There's the lesson plans. Again, we access this. We just used a different route. It took us directly into Life Hacks, but you can access it from the website as well. Oops. Some video tutorials about the set, getting started, specifically about the hub. There's lots of different things, tips and tricks about the expansion set, elements, third-party support, downloads. This is what I wanted to show you. So if you're interested in taking a look at the app, whether you have the hardware or not, if you'd like to download the app and kind of do your own walkthrough, you're definitely able to do that. You can have a look. Choose your device and you can download it. On iPad, it's obviously through the App Store. If you're using an Android, it's going to be through Google Play or wherever you get your apps from. Just make sure you search LEGO Education, and that way you're getting the educational apps as opposed to the retail apps. So it's 5 o'clock. That's it for me. I'm going to stay online for a few more minutes to answer any questions that anyone might have and connect, or we can connect offline if you'd like to send me an email. Thank you so much for joining me for our second Lego Education webinar as a part of this series. And I really hope that you'll join me next time. Our April schedule should be coming out very soon. So keep a lookout in your email, or you can visit us at spectrum-nasco.ca. And we have a webinar page there where you can see all of our upcoming webinars. Thanks, guys. Kate, do you know if there is going to be a Scratch extension for Spike Prime like there is for Lego, WeDo, and Boost? I'm not sure, Kate. That's something that I would want to double check with Lego. I think, Chris, are you still on here? No. I have a counterpart within the company too that deals directly with Lego as well, more from like a hardware aspect. So I can ask him, Kate. One of two ways that we can connect. You can either send me an email with this exact question so that I can follow up with you about that, or you can drop your email in the chat. I'll write it down and I'll just send you an email. I just don't want to misinform you. Okay, great. Kate, thanks so much. Does anybody else have any questions while you have me all to yourself? All right, we're done.